Stories about influential female figures in Buddhism are few and far between, but the story of Bà Đàm Lựu is one that stands out like a shining jewel in the Buddhist community. She made a tremendous difference, not just in San Jose, but in the United States, Vietnam, and all around the world. Her lasting impact has inspired monastics and lay people alike. Her gentle compassion and engagement in the community, a true testament to the Buddha's teachings. Born on August 4th, 1932, in northern Vietnam, Bà moved into Pagoda Temple at only 2.5 years old because she would cry whenever her parents tried to bring her home. Her teacher, Sư Cô Đàm Song, believed that education was very important in Buddhism. This belief was unprecedented during a time where the woman's role in society was limited to being a housewife and mother. This education would later play an important role in Ba's own practice. Ba was ordained as a novice nun at 16 years old, traveling to nearby temples for her Buddhist education. At 19 years old, 1 year before the customary age requirement, she was ordained as a nun, or Thekoni, due to her rapid growth and knowledge as a Buddhist student. Along with her teacher, Ba witnessed the founding of the first Buddhist school for nuns in southern Vietnam. There, Buddhist scripture was taught alongside Western education, and Ba graduated in 1960 with her high school diploma. She went on to further her Buddhist studies, but was interrupted by political unrest, and when she protested for religious freedom, Ba was briefly arrested and put in jail before being later released. In 1964, Ba was selected to study abroad in Germany with full scholarships under the Vietnamese Unified Buddhist Church. She studied social work in West Germany for 5 years, saying, "I love children and I wanted to have some knowledge of social work in order to help them effectively." Then, Ba returned to Vietnam in 1969 and was selected as president for an orphanage called Lam Tê Ni to provide for children who were displaced during the growing war. Even with the fall of Saigon in April of 1975, she secretly arranged for the children's needs at the cost of her own safety. Fiercely loyal, caring, and selfless, she looked after others at all costs, even in moments of imminent danger and threat. In 1978, Ba disguised herself as a lay woman and boarded an escape boat which led her to Malaysia. During this difficult and life-threatening trip, she witnessed the Buddhists around her struggle with their fear and anger, causing one another lots of suffering when they had to fight for basic needs like food, water, and space. No one knew she was a nun, but she vowed not to engage in these fights. Once they landed in Malaysia, Ba went against what everyone was doing and instead used her own personal money to help others. She cooked vegetarian food for them and bought them clothes. She gave hope and love for others, even though she was in the same situation as them, therefore embodying the Buddha's teachings without preaching a single word about religion. With only $20 in her possession, Ba finally came to the United States in 1980. She was sponsored by Wat Hung Thich Thanh Kác and stayed at Yak Min Temple in East Palo Alto, California for 3 months. Wat Hung then advised Ba to relocate to San Jose in order to start her own temple in 1981. She continued to help refugees who had arrived after her and used a small rental house as a humble temple. The living room served as the Buddha hall, and a modest tent in the backyard was a multi-purpose space for meals, dharma talks, classroom studying, even a bedroom for guests. In order to make ends meet, Suba would collect glass bottles and recycled materials to redeem for money. She built the temple penny by penny, always motivating people to practice. As time went on, the Vietnamese community got more involved in the building of the temple. Many people would come to her for counseling and guidance when they were homesick or experiencing struggles in this new country. She encouraged them not to blame others, just as she had experienced in Malaysia, and listened to them deeply to alleviate their pain. Over time, Suban noticed that young children growing up in the US were losing their Vietnamese cultural roots and language. They would follow American trends and speak English to parents and grandparents who didn't understand the language. Seeing this, Suba decided to open a Vietnamese language school at the temple, the first of its kind. Her school became rapidly popular, especially since she offered lunch and sometimes dinner for the students, which was a great help for parents. She wasn't afraid to adapt monastic precepts accordingly to meet modern needs out of compassion. In 1985 and 1986, Suba bought 3 lots of land, which is this current location, to meet the increasing needs of a growing community. She established the first official Vietnamese nunnery in the United States, and the Vien Temple became a teaching institution for nuns and monks alike. She encouraged her students to attend local community colleges and universities in order to have a Western education. Her progressive background in education and literacy paved the way for her students to become great Dharma teachers and scholars all over the world. Some of her most notable achievements were translating sutras into common Vietnamese, making it easier for practitioners to understand what they were chanting, and giving weekly Dharma talks, allowing practitioners more frequent occasions to encounter the Dharma. Although some of these changes were controversial at the time, it is thanks to Suba's ideas that other temples across the US and around the world have done the same. Later on, Suba hosted pilgrimages to important religious sites around the world, including India, China, Burma, and so on. She also went back to visit her root temple in Vietnam, honoring her roots and humble beginnings. Despite her numerous successes, Suba was down to earth, approachable, and genuine. She lived a simple life of few material possessions and was never attached to fame, formalities, or titles. She skillfully practiced around both praise and criticism. However, her compassion was not weak and passive. Instead, she was fierce and courageous in the face of adversity. Even when others accused Suba of wrongful things, she was always determined to do what was right. She loved everyone, even those who hated and threatened her, just like a bodhisattva would. Suba passed away on March 26, 1999, leaving behind a rich legacy and tremendous gifts to the Buddhist community through this beautiful practice center, her teachings, and simply her way of living. Since then, the community has continued to prosper and grow. For example, new buildings such as the dining hall and monastic residence support the community during days of mindfulness, retreats, and daily practice. At the time of Suba's passing, she had only around 10 monastic disciples, but the monastic sangha has grown to nearly 30 nuns today. The youth retreats have also grown to hundreds of attendees, and the Vietnamese language school has become a well-known institution for the Vietnamese Buddhist community. Aside from the primary location, Đức Vien Temple also has 2 additional practice centers, Đức Vien Tấn Nguyễn in Los Gatos, California, and Đức Vien Tấn Hải in Maui, Hawaii. These tranquil and scenic locations serve as ideal places for self-cultivation and practice for youth, adults, and monastics. The nuns of Đức Vien Temple have kept Suba's spirit alive in every Dharma project in the last couple decades. Her students are a true continuation of her teachings through their unwavering practice and determined service to the community. Though Suba was always at service to others, upholding monastic precepts and living with the biggest heart of compassion, Suba never expected anything in return. On her Memorial Day, we express our gratitude to Suba, our ancestral teacher, and aspire to practice in such a way so as to be a worthy continuation of her legacy, to give her the gift of our practice in gratitude for all that she has done for us.